The Grand Council chamber floated in space, orbiting the bright world of Velthara Prime. Inside the massive hall, representatives from 40 different alien species sat in their designated seats. The air hummed with translation devices, turning thousands of alien languages into understandable speech. At the center of the circular room stood a human man named Jinho Kang, dressed in the dark blue uniform of Earth's Defense Force. Jinho stood alone on the speaking platform. Above him, holographic displays showed images of Earth, the small blue planet that had caused so much trouble for the Galactic Coalition. The alien council members whispered among themselves, and Jinho could hear their voices clearly. They were not trying to hide their contempt. "Look at him," one alien said, its voice clicking and buzzing. "So small, so weak. His species cannot even travel faster than light without using our old technology." Another alien laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "They have only 5 colony worlds. We have hundreds. What makes them think they can refuse our terms?" Jinho kept his face calm, but his jaw tightened. He had expected this. Earth had known the Coalition would not take their refusal well. For the past 10 years, the Coalition had demanded that Earth pay massive taxes and give them access to mine Earth's asteroid belt. Earth had refused every time. Now the Coalition had lost patience. High Chancellor Quintar rose from his throne-like seat. He was a Velcoran, tall and covered in dark blue scales that shimmered under the chamber lights. His eyes were golden and cold. "Captain Kang," he said, his voice booming through the hall, "your planet has rejected our generous offer for the final time. The Coalition requires resources. Earth sits in a system rich with materials we need. You will comply, or we will take what we require by force." Jinho pressed a button on his wrist device. A hologram appeared beside him, showing Admiral Hannah Park. She stood on the bridge of Earth's newest warship, her arms crossed over her chest. Her short hair was tied back and her eyes were sharp and focused. "High Chancellor," Hannah said, her voice clear and strong, "Earth's answer remains the same. We will not submit to your demands. We are a free and independent world. If you attempt to take our resources by force, you will regret it." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Aliens of all shapes and sizes seemed to find this hilarious. Some slapped their appendages on their seats. Others made sounds that Jinho's translator could barely interpret as mockery. Quintar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Regret it? Captain Admiral, you must understand your position. The Coalition has 10,000 warships. You have barely 200. Our military has conquered entire sectors of space. Your species has only been in space for less than 300 years. You are children playing with toys. We are offering you a chance to join civilization. Refuse and we will treat you as the primitives you are." Jinho noticed something strange. While most of the council members were laughing or nodding in agreement, one figure sat perfectly still. General Vraxith, another Velcoran like the High Chancellor, occupied a seat near the back of the chamber. His scales were darker, almost black, and his face was marked with old scars. Unlike the others, he was not smiling. He stared at Jinho and Hannah with an expression that looked almost like worry. "We have survived worse than you," Jinho said quietly. The laughter died down as his words were translated. "Humans have faced extinction many times in our history. We have fought ice ages, plagues, and wars that nearly destroyed us. Every time we survived. Every time we grew stronger. You see us as primitive, but you do not understand us at all." Quintar's smile faded. "Is that a threat, Captain?" "It is a warning," Hannah said from her hologram. "Leave Earth alone. Find your resources elsewhere. We want peace, but we will not be bullied. We will not be conquered. And we will not surrender." The High Chancellor's golden eyes narrowed. "Then the Coalition will teach you a lesson in respect." He turned to address the full council. "I call for a vote. All in favor of sending a punishment fleet to Earth to force compliance indicate now." One by one, the council members activated their voting signals. Green lights appeared above nearly every seat. The vote was almost unanimous. Jinho counted only 3 red lights indicating a refusal to vote and 1 abstention. The abstention came from General Vraxith. Quintar looked at the voting results with satisfaction. "It is decided. The Coalition will dispatch 12 warships and 5,000 troops to Earth. You have 1 cycle to reconsider your position. Captain Kang, Admiral Park, if you do not surrender when our fleet arrives, we will take what we want and leave your world in ashes." Hannah's hologram flickered. "Then you will learn what humanity is capable of," she said. I hope you have enough ships to carry home your survivors. The hologram vanished. The council chamber buzzed with excited conversation. Many of the aliens seemed pleased at the prospect of putting the humans in their place. Jinho stood motionless on the platform, his mind already working through defense strategies and timing calculations. He had expected this outcome, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a weight settling on his chest. As the council began to adjourn, Jinho turned to leave the speaking platform. He needed to return to his ship and send word to Earth immediately. They would have perhaps 30 days before the punishment fleet arrived, maybe less. Every moment would count, Captain Kang. Jinho turned to find General Vraxith standing behind him. The old warrior moved silently despite his size. Up close, Jinho could see that the general's scars were burn marks, and his left arm had clearly been regrown using alien medical technology. The color did not quite match the rest of his scales. "General," Jinho said carefully, "can I help you?" Vraxith looked around to make sure no other council members were watching. Then he leaned closer and spoke in a low voice that only Jinho could hear. "I abstained from the vote. I noticed why." The general's scarred face seemed to age before Jinho's eyes. "Because I have fought humans before," he said quietly. 40 cycles ago at a place you call New Sol. I led 300 of our finest warriors against a human colony. We expected an easy victory." He paused and something like pain crossed his features. "Only I survived to return home." Jinho felt his blood run cold. He had heard stories about New Sol, about the colony that had held off an alien raid against impossible odds. He had never known which species had attacked. Vraxith placed one clawed hand on Jinho's shoulder. The grip was gentle but firm. "The Coalition does not know what they are about to face. They think you are weak because you are smaller, slower, physically weaker than most species. They do not understand that humans fight with their minds, not their bodies. They do not understand that you never surrender, never stop, never forget." "Why are you telling me this?" Jinho asked. The general released his grip and stepped back. His golden eyes met Jinho's dark ones. "Because I do not want to see another genocide. When the Coalition attacks Earth, one side will be destroyed. I have seen what happens when humanity is cornered." He turned to walk away, then looked back over his shoulder. "Hide your children, Captain Kang. What is coming will be terrible for everyone." Then General Vraxith disappeared into the crowd of departing council members, leaving Jinho standing alone with those ominous words echoing in his mind. The neutral space station orbited a dead moon far from any inhabited world. It was a forgotten place, built centuries ago and now used only by smugglers and those who needed privacy. Inside a small meeting room, Jinho Kang sat across from General Vraxith. Admiral Hana Park stood by the door, her hand never far from her sidearm. 2 other humans had joined them. Dr. Yuna Shin, a xenobiologist who studied alien species, sat with her data tablet recording everything. Commander Doyen Lee from Earth Intelligence leaned against the wall, his eyes constantly watching the general for any signs of threat. 3 days had passed since the council meeting. Vraxith had contacted Jinho through a secure channel, requesting this meeting. Getting here had been dangerous for everyone. If the Coalition discovered that their own general was meeting with humans in secret, they would execute him for treason. "Thank you for coming," Vraxith said. His voice was different here, away from the council chamber. It sounded tired and old. "I know you are taking a great risk." "So are you," Hana said. "Why did you ask us here? What do you want?" The general touched a control panel on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing footage from 40 years ago. The images were grainy and damaged, but clear enough. It showed a human colony on a green world. Buildings made of metal and glass dotted a valley surrounded by mountains. Human civilians walked the streets working and living their lives. "New Sol Colony," Vraxith said. 42 cycles ago. The Coalition had just learned of humanity's existence. "We decided to test your species, to see if you would be easy to control. I was young then, ambitious and foolish. I volunteered to lead the raid." The footage changed. Now it showed Velcran warriors in armored suits descending from the sky in drop pods. 300 soldiers, all heavily armed and trained. They landed in the colony's center and immediately began destroying buildings to create fear. Jinho watched the footage carefully. He saw human civilians running, but not in blind panic. They moved in organized groups, heading towards specific locations. Children and elderly were guided into underground shelters while adults grabbed weapons from hidden caches. We expected them to surrender immediately. Vraxith continued. We had superior weapons, superior numbers, superior training. But the humans did not surrender. They did not even seem afraid. The footage showed what happened next. Human defenders appeared on rooftops, in windows, behind barriers. They fired on the Velcoran warriors with weapons that seemed primitive compared to alien technology. But they fired with deadly accuracy. Every shot was calculated. Every movement had purpose. They knew we were coming, Doyen said suddenly. They had time to prepare. Vraxith nodded slowly. Yes, we did not know it then, but the humans had detected our ships days before we arrived. They had sent their real military forces away to make us think the colony was undefended. The people who stayed behind were volunteers. Only 50 of them against 300 of us. Yuna leaned forward, studying the footage. But why would they sacrifice themselves like that? Because they understood something we did not, the general said. They knew that if they could hurt us badly enough, if they could show us that humans would fight to the death, we would think twice before attacking again. They turned themselves into a warning. The footage became harder to watch. The battle lasted for 6 hours. The human defenders used traps, ambushes, and tactics that the Velcoran warriors had never encountered. They collapsed buildings on top of alien soldiers. They used the colony's own infrastructure as weapons, flooding streets with chemicals and electrifying metal surfaces. When the Velcoran warriors tried to regroup, human snipers picked them off one by one. My warriors were the best the coalition had, Vraxith said, and his voice cracked slightly. They had fought in dozens of campaigns. They had conquered entire worlds. But the humans were different. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like demons. Every corner could be a trap. Every civilian building could hide a sniper. They made us afraid of our own shadows. The footage showed a younger Vraxith, his scale still bright blue, leading a group of survivors through a burning street. An explosion erupted behind them. Warriors fell. The general turned to fire his weapon, but there was no target to see. The humans were ghosts, striking from nowhere and vanishing before retaliation was possible. By the time we retreated to our ships, I had only 12 warriors left, Vraxith said. 12 out of 300. The humans had lost all 50 of their defenders, but they had broken us. When I returned to Coalition space and reported what happened, my superiors did not believe me. They said I must have been incompetent, that I had failed in some basic way. They demoted me and sent me to fight in other wars to prove myself again. Hana crossed her arms. If they didn't believe you, why are you a general now? Because I won every battle after that, Vraxith said simply. I learned from the humans. I learned to think like them, to expect the unexpected, to never underestimate an enemy. I became the Coalition's most successful commander because humans taught me how to truly fight. He paused. But the Coalition learned nothing. They still think of Earth as primitive. They still think military strength is only about numbers and technology. Jinho stood and walked to the holographic display. He studied the faces of the human defenders in the frozen image. These people had died decades before he was born, but they had saved Earth without knowing it. Their sacrifice had bought humanity time to prepare to grow stronger. You said you came to warn us, Jinho said. What exactly is the Coalition sending? Vraxith manipulated the controls, bringing up new data. 12 warships, all capital-class vessels. 5,000 troops, including shock divisions designed to suppress rebellious populations. They plan to disable your orbital defenses, land troops on major cities, and force your governments to surrender. If you resist, they will begin destroying cities until you comply. Doyen whistled low. That's a significant force. For most species, it would be overwhelming, the general agreed. But I have been studying humanity since New Sol. I have watched your species grow. I have seen your technology advance, your military strategies evolve. I know something the Council does not. What's that? Yuna asked. Vraxith looked at each of them in turn. Humanity has been preparing for this moment since first contact with the Coalition. Every satellite you launch, every trade ship you send out, every colony you establish serves a dual purpose. You have been building a military infrastructure while pretending to be peaceful. Your merchant vessels are equipped with hidden weapons. Your civilian stations can transform into fortresses. You have been planning for war while smiling and nodding at council meetings. The room fell silent. None of the humans confirmed or denied what Vraxith said, but their expressions told him everything. I am not angry about the deception, the general continued. I admire it. It is exactly what humans do best. You make your enemies underestimate you. And then you strike when they are most confident. The punishment fleet expects to find a weak, frightened planet. They will find something very different. Hana finally spoke, her voice careful and measured. If you know all this, why are you helping us? Why risk your life to warn us? Vraxith stood slowly, his old body moving with difficulty. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Because I have seen what happens when humanity is pushed into a corner. At New Sol, those 50 defenders could have surrendered. They could have saved themselves. But they chose to fight, knowing they would die because they wanted to protect future generations. That kind of dedication, that kind of sacrifice is terrifying. He turned back to face them. If the Coalition attacks Earth, humanity will not just defend. You will retaliate. You will hunt down every Coalition world and make them pay. The war will not end until one side is completely destroyed. I do not want to see my species extinct because our leaders were too arrogant to listen to one old soldier. Jinho approached the general and extended his hand, a human gesture of respect. Thank you for the warning. We will use the information well. Vraxith looked at the offered hand for a moment, then grasped it. His grip was strong despite his age. There is one more thing you must know, he said. The punishment fleet will arrive in 27 days. But if you defeat them, the Coalition will send more. They will send everything they have because they cannot allow humanity to win. This first battle will determine the future of both our species. As they prepared to leave the station and return to their respective ships, Vraxith stopped Jinho one final time. Captain, do you know why humans terrify me more than any enemy I have ever faced? Why? Because you don't fight with your bodies or your weapons, the general said quietly. You fight with your minds and you never stop thinking, never stop planning, never stop finding new ways to win. The Coalition has weapons that can destroy planets, but humanity has something more dangerous than any weapon. What's that? Vraxith's scarred face showed something that might have been respect or might have been fear. Patience. Humans are willing to wait decades for revenge, to sacrifice everything for victory, to lose every battle except the last one. That patience, that long-term thinking is why you will win this war, and that is why I am afraid. 27 days passed exactly as General Vraxith had predicted. The Coalition punishment fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12 massive warships hung in the darkness of space, each one 3 times larger than Earth's biggest vessel. Commander Zalvex stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the blue planet ahead with satisfaction. This would be an easy victory, he thought. Primitive humans would surrender as soon as they saw the fleet's power. On Earth, Admiral Taeyang Nam watched the alien ships appear on his monitors. He sat in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, surrounded by screens showing every defensive position humanity had prepared. Around the planet, thousands of satellites drifted in their orbits, looking innocent and harmless. In hidden bases on the Moon and Mars, troops waited for orders. In the asteroid belt, weapons platforms disguised as mining stations powered up their systems. They're broadcasting a message, reported a communications officer. Taeyang nodded. Put it through. Zalvex's image appeared on the main screen. He was a Krellian, with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked independently. His uniform was decorated with medals from dozens of campaigns. Attention, Earth, he said in a bored voice. This is Commander Zalvex of the Galactic Coalition Punishment Fleet. You have defied Coalition authority for the last time. You have 6 hours to surrender unconditionally. Transmit your surrender on all channels and we will accept your compliance. Resist and we will destroy your military facilities, then your cities until you beg for mercy. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Taeyang looked at his command staff. Captain Rena Choi, the leader of Earth's fighter squadrons, stood ready at her station. Colonel Sora Bay, who commanded the Special Forces units, waited with her arms crossed. Admiral Hana Park appeared via hologram from her flagship in orbit. 6 hours, Hana said with a slight smile. How generous of them. Should we respond? Asked Rena. Taeyang thought for a moment, then activated the communication system. Send this message to Commander Zalvex. Audio only. When the connection was established, Hana spoke clearly. Commander Zalvex, this is Admiral Hana Park of Earth Defense Force. We have considered your offer and must respectfully decline. However, we would like to make a counteroffer. Leave our solar system immediately, and we will allow you to survive. This is your only warning. The command center fell silent as they waited for a response. It came quickly. Zalvex's face reappeared on the screen, and this time he was laughing. You dare threaten us? You have 200 small ships against our 12 capital warships. Your weapons are generations behind ours. Your species has been in space for less than 3 centuries. We have conquered civilizations that existed for millennia. Your arrogance will be your destruction." "Then let us begin," Hana said calmly. The transmission ended. Zalvex turned to his weapons officer. "Commence bombardment of their orbital defenses. Destroy their satellites and weapons platforms. Let them watch as we dismantle their pitiful military." The Coalition warships opened fire. Energy beams lanced across space toward Earth's orbital installations. But before the beams could reach their targets, something unexpected happened. The satellites that had appeared to be simple communication and observation devices suddenly activated. They moved with surprising speed, dodging some of the incoming fire. Those that were hit exploded, but the explosions were not normal. They were shaped charges that directed all their force back toward the Coalition ships. "What is this?" Zalvex demanded. "Those were civilian satellites." "They're weapons," his tactical officer reported, his voice rising in panic. "All of them are weapons. Every satellite in orbit has been armed. They're firing back." The peaceful satellites revealed their true purpose. Hidden panels opened to expose missile batteries, energy weapons, and railguns. Thousands of projectiles streaked toward the Coalition fleet. The warship's defensive shields activated, stopping most of the incoming fire, but not all of it. One warship took a direct hit from a railgun round that punched through its shields and tore a hole in the hull. Atmosphere vented into space. "How?" Zalvex shouted. "How do they have this kind of firepower?" He did not know the answer, but humans had been preparing for decades. Every satellite launched had been designed to serve 2 purposes. They were communication devices, weather monitors, and GPS systems. But they were also weapons platforms, waiting silently for the day they would be needed. Rena Choi received her orders and smiled. She sat in the cockpit of her fighter, hidden inside what appeared to be a piece of space debris in Earth's ring system. Around her, 50 other pilots waited in similar hiding places. These fighters were Earth's newest design, covered in stealth materials that made them nearly invisible to sensors. "All wings, this is Rena," she said into her communication system. "Target the flagship's engines. They won't expect us to come from behind. Move out." The stealth fighters activated and accelerated toward the Coalition fleet. They approached from the direction of the sun, making their heat signatures blend with the star's radiation. The Coalition ships never saw them coming until it was too late. Rena lined up her shot and fired. Her fighters' weapons were specially designed to punch through shields by rapidly alternating energy frequencies. The missiles struck the flagship's rear engines, causing massive explosions. Other fighters followed her example, attacking engines and weapon systems across the Coalition fleet. "We're being attacked from behind," a Coalition officer screamed. "Unknown fighters, stealth technology. We can't lock onto them." Zalvex gripped his command chair. This was not supposed to happen. The intelligence reports had said Earth's military was small and primitive. But these tactics were anything but primitive. The humans were fighting smart, hitting weak points using surprise and deception. "Recall all fighters to defend the fleet," Zalvex ordered. "Deploy countermeasures. Find those ships." But it was already too late. 3 Coalition warships were severely damaged, their engines destroyed or their weapon systems offline. The human fighters vanished back into the debris field before the Coalition could respond effectively. On the ground, Colonel Sora Bay led her Special Forces team through the corridors of a captured Coalition shuttle. They had found it drifting near Mars, its crew killed by a precisely aimed missile that had penetrated the hull. Sora and her team wore modified spacesuits and carried weapons designed for shipboarding operations. "Remember the plan," Sora said to her team. "We attach to the flagship, cut through the hull, get to the bridge, and disable their command systems. Quick and quiet." "Colonel, how are we supposed to be quiet when we're cutting through a warship?" asked one of her soldiers. Sora smiled behind her helmet. "We won't be. That's what the explosions outside are for. They'll be too busy dealing with fighters and missiles to notice us." The captured shuttle approached the Coalition flagship, broadcasting Coalition identification codes that Earth intelligence had stolen years ago. The flagship's automated systems accepted the codes and allowed the shuttle to dock. Sora and her team exited quickly, moving through the alien ship's corridors with practiced efficiency. They encountered their first group of Coalition soldiers within minutes. The aliens carried weapons and wore armor, but they were not prepared for humans fighting at close range. Sora's team moved faster, hit harder, and showed no mercy. Within seconds, the Coalition soldiers were down. "Keep moving," Sora ordered. "We have 15 minutes before they realize we're here." Back in space, Admiral Taeyang watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Coalition fleet was in chaos. Their ships were damaged, their fighters destroyed or fleeing, and their command structure was breaking down. But he knew this was only the beginning. "Deploy the secondary weapons," Taeyang ordered. "Let them see what else we've been hiding." Across the solar system, what the Coalition had identified as mining stations and research facilities suddenly came to life. They were not civilian installations at all. They were weapons platforms armed with the most powerful weapons humanity could build. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a fraction of light speed. Missile batteries with warheads designed specifically to penetrate alien shields. Energy weapons that could overload a warship's power systems. The platforms opened fire. The Coalition fleet, already damaged and disorganized, could not defend against attacks from multiple directions. Another warship exploded when a railgun round tore completely through it. 2 more ships lost power when energy weapons fried their systems. Commander Zalvik stared at his screens in horror. In less than 20 minutes, his fleet had gone from complete confidence to desperate survival. Half his ships were damaged or destroyed. His fighters were gone. His troops had not even reached the planet yet. "Send a message to the Coalition," Zalvik said, his voice shaking. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately. Tell them Earth was ready for us. Tell them this was a trap." As he spoke, an explosion rocked the flagship. Sora and her team had reached the ship's power core and planted their charges. The Coalition bridge crew scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The charges detonated not to destroy the ship, but to disable it. The flagship's lights went out. Its engines died. Its weapons fell silent. In the darkness of the disabled bridge, the Coalition Council chamber was in chaos. High Chancellor Quintar stood at the center, reading reports from the punishment fleet with disbelief. Around him, council members shouted at each other, their voices creating a symphony of anger and fear. The reports were impossible to believe, yet they were true. The punishment fleet had been destroyed or crippled. Earth had won. How could this happen? Quintar demanded. "We sent 12 capital ships. We sent 5,000 of our best troops. The humans should have surrendered immediately. They were waiting for us," said one council member, a Velthian with 6 arms that trembled with rage. Commander Zalvek's last transmission said Earth had hidden weapons everywhere. Their satellites were armed. Their civilian stations were military bases. They turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Another council member stood, this one a Krellian like Zalvek's. "I warned you all that humans were dangerous. I said we should study them more carefully before attacking. But no one listened." General Vraxith sat in his seat saying nothing. He had warned them too, but they had ignored him. Now they were paying the price. He knew something the others did not yet realize. This defeat was not the end of the war. It was the beginning. 3 days after the battle, Earth's response arrived. It did not come in the form of a diplomatic message or a peace offer. It came in the form of fire and destruction. Captain Hyunko commanded the Earth Defense Force carrier Indomitable, one of humanity's largest warships. But the Coalition had never seen it before because it had been built in secret, far from Earth in a hidden shipyard beyond the outer planets. Now it emerged from faster-than-light travel with 50 other ships that the Coalition did not know existed. "Target confirmed," Hyun said, looking at the tactical display. "Coalition Shipyard Complex, Sector 7. Begin the attack." The Coalition shipyard was massive, capable of building 10 warships simultaneously. It was considered one of the safest facilities in Coalition space, protected by defense platforms and a garrison of soldiers. But the humans struck before the defenders could react. Earth's ships used tactics the Coalition had never encountered. They did not announce their presence. They did not demand surrender. They simply attacked with overwhelming force, destroying the defense platforms in the first minute. Then they targeted the shipyard itself, firing missiles that tore through the construction bays where new warships were being built. The shipyard's commander sent a desperate message to the Coalition. "We are under attack." "Human ships, dozens of them. Where did they come from? We need help." The transmission ended in static as another missile struck the command center. But Earth's attack was not limited to one location. Across Coalition space, other human ships emerged from hiding. These were not military vessels. They appeared to be the same merchant ships that had been trading peacefully with coalition worlds for years. But when they received their orders, they revealed their true nature. Ambassador Jiwon Song had spent 15 years working in coalition space. She appeared to be a simple diplomat, representing Earth's trade interests and attending boring meetings. In reality, she was a spy and a coordinator for Earth's intelligence network. She had traveled to dozens of coalition worlds, making friends and learning secrets. Now all that work paid off. Activate all sleeper cells, Jiwon transmitted on a secure channel. Phase 2 begins now. Throughout coalition space, humans who had been living peaceful lives suddenly became soldiers. A restaurant owner on Velthara Prime locked his doors and opened a hidden weapons cache. A teacher on a Krellian colony world sent coded messages to resistance groups. A merchant captain changed his ship's course and headed toward a coalition military base. The merchant ship, Peaceful Trade, approached a coalition fuel depot. The depot's traffic control allowed it to dock without suspicion. The ship had been making deliveries there for 3 years. But this time, when the ship docked, armed humans emerged. They overwhelmed the small security force and planted charges throughout the facility. By the time coalition reinforcements arrived, the depot was destroyed, along with enough fuel to power a fleet for 6 months. Fleet Admiral Nario sat in Earth's main military command center, coordinating the massive operation. She was the supreme commander of all Earth forces, and she had been planning this moment for 20 years. Screens around her showed attacks happening across coalition space. Each one was carefully timed and perfectly executed. "How many targets have we hit?" Nari asked her staff. 17 confirmed destructions, replied an intelligence officer. 4 shipyards, 6 fuel depots, 5 military bases, and 2 command centers. Coalition response is still disorganized. They don't know where we'll strike next. Nari nodded. Good. Deploy the psychological warfare package. Let's make sure they understand what's happening. Across coalition space, every communication channel suddenly carried the same message. It showed footage of Earth's victory against the punishment fleet. It showed coalition ships burning and retreating. And it showed Admiral Hana Park speaking directly to the coalition people. "You tried to conquer us because you thought we were weak," Hana said in the message. "You thought our small size and short time in space made us easy prey. You were wrong. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We have climbed from caves to the stars through determination and intelligence. You overlooked us. You underestimated us. You forgot that weak species don't survive. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten humanity. This is not revenge. This is education." The message played on every screen in coalition space. It could not be blocked or stopped. Earth's hackers had infiltrated coalition communication systems years ago, waiting for this moment. The psychological impact was immediate. Coalition citizens saw their mighty military being destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Fear spread like wildfire. On Velthara Prime, General Vraxith watched Hana's message with a mixture of admiration and sorrow. He had known this would happen. He had tried to warn them. Now his species would pay the price for their arrogance. The council summoned him immediately. Quintar's face was pale with rage. "You knew! You warned us about humans and we should have listened. What do we do now?" Vraxith stood before the council, his old body straight and proud. "Surrender," he said simply. "Surrender now, immediately, before they destroy everything. The humans are not fighting to conquer you. They are fighting to teach you a lesson. Every day you continue this war, they will destroy more of our infrastructure. They will cripple our economy. They will make coalition space unlivable. Surrender?" Quintar shouted. "Never! We have thousands of ships. We can still defeat them." "You don't understand," Vraxith said quietly. "This isn't about ships or soldiers. The humans have been preparing for this war since they first entered space. Every trade agreement was intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic mission was reconnaissance. Every peaceful gesture hid military preparation. They have weapons hidden throughout our space. They have agents on our worlds. They know our weaknesses better than we do ourselves." A council member stood, trembling with fear. "What kind of weapons? What else are they hiding?" Vraxith pulled up classified reports on the council chamber's displays. Earth intelligence believes humans have deployed relativistic kinetic weapons. These are missiles that travel at nearly the speed of light. They were placed in hidden locations throughout coalition space years ago. If humanity activates them, entire worlds could be destroyed before we even detect the attack. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were terrifying. Relativistic weapons were theoretical doomsday devices. A projectile traveling at near light speed carried so much kinetic energy that it could crack a planet's crust. And humans had hidden these weapons throughout coalition space without anyone noticing. "You're saying they could destroy our homeworlds at any moment?" asked a council member, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Vraxith said. "But they haven't. That should tell you something important. Humans don't want genocide. They want respect. They want to be left alone. If you surrender now and agree to their terms, they might show mercy. If you continue fighting, they will use those weapons because they will have no choice. They will destroy everything to ensure their own survival." Quintar slumped in his throne, looking suddenly old and defeated. "How did we miss this? How did we not see what they were doing? Because you didn't want to see it," Vraxith said, his voice hard. "You looked at humans and saw small, weak creatures. You saw a species that had only been in space for a few centuries. You didn't see the intelligence, the patience, the long-term planning. You didn't see that while you were busy conquering other worlds. Humans were studying you, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for the day you would threaten them." The general turned to leave the council chamber, but Quintar called him back. "Where are you going?" "To contact Earth," Vraxith said. "Someone needs to arrange peace talks before this becomes a war of extinction. And since I am the only one who understands humans, it might as well be me." "The council will consider you a traitor," warned another member. Vraxith looked back at them with tired eyes. "I don't care what you consider me. I care about survival. 40 cycles ago, I watched 50 human civilians destroy my entire force. Today I am..." The neutral space station had been chosen carefully. It belonged to no government and had served as a meeting place for peace negotiations for over 200 years. Inside its largest conference room, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Coalition sat across from each other. The atmosphere was tense, filled with unspoken anger and fear. General Vraxith had been chosen to lead the coalition delegation despite protests from many council members. High Chancellor Quintar had wanted to lead the talks himself, but other council members had refused. They no longer trusted Quintar's judgment. Too many of his decisions had led to disaster. Vraxith sat at the negotiation table with 3 other coalition representatives, including Elder Counselor Mavrish, a wise Velthian who had opposed the war from the beginning. Across from them sat the human delegation. Admiral Hana Park led the group, her expression cold and professional. Captain Jinho Kang sat beside her, along with Dr. Yuna Shin and Ambassador Jiwon Song. Behind them stood President Junho Han, the civilian leader of Earth's unified government. He had come to make the final decision on peace terms. "Let us begin," Mavresh said, his 6 arms folded in a gesture of respect. "The coalition acknowledges that the war was a mistake. We underestimated humanity and paid a terrible price. We are prepared to discuss terms for peace." Hana placed a data pad on the table. "These are Earth's requirements. First, the coalition must formally recognize Earth's complete independence. No taxes, no resource claims, no interference in human affairs. Second, the coalition will pay reparations for the attack on our solar system. We calculate the cost at 5 trillion credits. Third, the coalition will dismantle all military bases within 50 light-years of Earth space. Fourth, all coalition military forces will be reduced by 40% over the next 10 years. The coalition representatives looked at each other in shock. The terms were harsh, designed to cripple the coalition's military power for decades. "These terms are too severe," protested one of the coalition members, a Krellian admiral named Kextar. "You would leave us defenseless against other threats." Jinho leaned forward. "You mean the way you tried to leave us defenseless? The way you planned to destroy our cities if we didn't surrender? Those terms are generous compared to what we could demand." Vraxith raised one clawed hand for silence. "Admiral Kextar, be quiet. The humans have shown remarkable restraint. They could have used their relativistic weapons to destroy our homeworlds. They could have killed billions. Instead, they targeted only military installations. They gave us a chance to surrender. These terms may be harsh, but they allow our civilization to survive." "Survive?" Kexter shouted. "You call this survival? They want to reduce our military by nearly half. They want us to pay impossible amounts of money. They want us to abandon strategic positions." President Junho Han spoke for the first time, his voice calm but firm. "What you call harsh terms, we call justice. Your coalition has attacked 17 different species over the past 2 centuries. You have forced them to submit through military might. You take resources from other worlds without fair compensation. You demand obedience and punish resistance with destruction. We are giving you a choice that you never gave others. Accept peace on our terms or face total war. Mavresh studied the human president carefully. And if we choose total war? What then? Junho pulled out another datapad and slid it across the table. Then we activate our contingency plans. We have relativistic missiles positioned near 47 coalition worlds. We have computer viruses ready to disable your entire communication network. We have biological weapons designed to target every major coalition species. We have been preparing for total war since the day we first met your people. If you force us to use these weapons, the coalition will cease to exist. Not immediately, but over the next 5 years as your infrastructure collapses and your worlds fall into chaos. The room fell silent. The coalition representative stared at the datapad, which showed the locations of hidden human weapons throughout their space. The information was precise and detailed. There was no bluff here. Humanity had truly prepared for every possibility. You planned this for decades, Vraxith said quietly. All those years of trade and diplomacy you were preparing for war. Hana nodded. We learned from history, our own history and yours. We studied every war the coalition ever fought. We analyzed your tactics, your strategies, your weaknesses. We knew that one day you would threaten us, so we prepared. We built weapons in secret. We planted agents across your space. We made sure that if you attacked us, you would regret it. But why? Asked Mavresh. Why go to such lengths? Why not simply join the coalition peacefully? Dr. Yuna Shin answered that question. Because the coalition doesn't want partners. It wants subjects. Every species you encounter must either submit or be destroyed. You don't offer true friendship or equality. You offer the choice between slavery and extinction. Humanity has been enslaved before in our own history. We swore never to let it happen again. Admiral Kextar slammed his appendage on the table. This is outrageous. You speak as if we are monsters. The coalition brings order and civilization to the galaxy. You bring tyranny, Jinho said coldly. You force other species to follow your rules, pay your taxes, and fight your wars. And when they resist, you crush them. We have talked to the species you conquered. We know what you did to the Velthians when they tried to rebel. We know about the Krellian colonies you destroyed as examples. We know about the economic warfare you used to force compliance. The coalition is not a partnership. It is an empire built on fear. Vraxith closed his eyes, feeling the weight of truth in those words. He had spent his life serving the coalition, believing it brought peace and order to the galaxy, but now he saw it through human eyes. The coalition was indeed an empire, and like all empires, it maintained power through force and fear. What do you want from us? Vraxith asked quietly. Beyond the formal terms, what does humanity truly want? President Junho Han stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. We want to be left alone. We want to develop our own civilization without interference. We want to explore the galaxy on our own terms, and we want other species to have the same freedom. Your coalition has existed for thousands of years, but it has become corrupt and arrogant. You need to change or you will eventually fall. Mavresh spoke carefully, choosing his words with precision. If we accept your terms, what guarantees do we have that humanity will not become the new threat? You have shown you possess terrible weapons and the willingness to use them. What stops you from conquering us once we are weakened? Hana smiled slightly. Logic and self-interest. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want the responsibility of managing hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. We want our independence and we want fair trade relationships. If the coalition becomes a true partnership instead of an empire, we will be happy to join as equals. But if you continue as you were, we will continue to resist. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The coalition representatives argued over every point, trying to reduce the impact of Earth's demands. But the humans were firm. They knew they had the advantage and they used it. Finally, on the 4th day, an agreement was reached. The coalition would recognize Earth's independence. They would pay reparations over 20 years. They would reduce their military forces and dismantle aggressive forward bases. In return, humanity would not use their hidden weapons and would engage in fair trade with coalition worlds. It was not the peace the coalition had wanted, but it was better than total destruction. As the treaty was signed, Vraxith approached President Junho Han privately. What will happen to me now? The general asked. My people consider me a traitor for helping humanity. I have nowhere to go. Junho looked at the old warrior with respect. You tried to warn your people? You tried to prevent this war. That took courage. If you wish, Earth will grant you asylum. You can live on one of our colonies. Perhaps help us understand coalition culture better. Or you can return to your people and face whatever judgment they decide. The choice is yours. Vraxith thought about his options. His own species would likely execute him for treason. He had abstained from the vote to attack Earth, and he had helped negotiate what they saw as a humiliating peace. But returning to coalition space would accomplish nothing. Perhaps he could be more useful elsewhere. I accept your offer of asylum, Vraxith said. Perhaps I can help prevent future misunderstandings between our peoples. And perhaps I can teach your military what I learned from 40 years of fighting. 5 years passed. The peace held, though it was an uneasy peace. The coalition had restructured itself, creating a more democratic system where member species had real voting power. The military had been reduced, and aggressive expansion had ended. Many coalition worlds were unhappy with the changes, but they understood the alternative was worse. Earth had grown stronger. 36 new colonies had been established. Trade relationships with non-coalition species flourished. The human military remained on high alert, never forgetting that peace was maintained through strength, not hope. In those 5 years, an interesting development occurred. 30 species that had been forced into the coalition by conquest chose to leave, and